Today, we're joined again by David Huynh. David went from zero experience to landing a cybersecurity job in just 9 months. And he's here to share exactly what worked, what didn't, and how you can follow the same path in 2026.
They know the material you're supposed to know, and they're going to bug and they're going to ask questions about it. And you better be able to answer and communicate smoothly and also tie it into your projects if you have no work experience.
We're breaking down the 2026 roadmap to getting hired in cybersecurity, what to put on your resume, which certifications are worth your time, and how to prove your skills even if you've never worked a day in cybersecurity before.
Good thing of this route is that you're already working, making money. You're in the world of IT. You can network with your peer, with your other sister IT teams, the cybersecurity director, the network director, blah, blah, blah. You can network with people within your job. Embrace the never-ending upskilling, learning nature of this beast of IT.
David's story is proof that it can be done, and the steps we're going to cover could save you months of trial and error. With that said, let's roll into this week's episode. Well, welcome to the show, David. Do you mind taking a few minutes and kind of giving us a brief background on who you are and what you do for a living?
Again, my name is David Huynh. I'm so happy to be here to talk to you guys about cybersecurity, IT in general. A little bit about me and my background. Coming up on 4 years of total IC cybersecurity experience. I'm both a cybersecurity engineer and then also a senior cybersecurity analyst. Just the duties and that I cover. I first got into cybersecurity, kind of a stepping stone approach. Hopped in to IT support first with the call center, and then eventually worked my way up through getting tons of certifications. Revising the resume, building up on the LinkedIn, keeping the activity active on LinkedIn. And eventually I got my first shot. That was back in summer of 2023. And I'm just happy to be here, talk to you guys, talk with Dakota, and give a more updated version of that coming into, mid-late, we're in Q4 of 2025, and then what's to be expected going into cybersecurity of 2026.
Absolutely. We were just talking before we started the recording, last time we had you on the channel, or the first time we had you on the channel, not the last time, you were just a month into the cybersecurity, and your whole journey, the whole reason we were talking is because you supercharged your career path and was able to go from like zero experience to a cybersecurity role in 9 months, which is just incredible and really an inspiring story. And I want to actually just dive right on into it and get your opinion. What separates candidates who are trying to break into this field from the ones who actually get hired versus the ones that have been applying for the same entry-level jobs?
Okay, so guys, it's a multifaceted approach. And I always say, like, the more right things that you do, the faster. It's not really faster. It's really the higher the odds and probabilities. Like, you can't really perfectly time your entry into the industry because there's too many factors that are outside of your control. So you can't ultimately 100% control the timing. But the more correct, right things that you do, the more effective things that you do, it'll increase your probabilities and your odds and your chances. And that should accelerate the speed and the downtime that it takes for you to finally break in. So let's jump into some of the details about the things that are effective and that actually matter. So it's kind of an argumentative one, but I think it's pretty straight, cut, dry, and clear. Of course, there's some biases here with me, but I think certifications are amazing. Yes, they cost money. Yes, they take time and energy to study and prepare for. But I think the more you're willing to achieve, especially, you have to pick and choose certain ones, correct? Certain large market share tools, Splunk, CrowdStrike, Palo Alto, Cisco, like a Cisco Palo Alto is going to hold more weight than a Checkpoint only because of pure market share and that organizations that actually use that type of architecture. Splunk is going to hold a little bit more market share than something like an Elk. So Elk Elastic, guys. So of course you have to pick and choose certain certifications. Now, that was just from a popularity standpoint. You also have to pick and choose from a conceptual multiple choice versus a hands-on, truly technical skill, hands-on keyboard. I actually have the skills to do the job from day one. So my first point was all about certifications. And you do have to, and this is going to tie into another point that I'm going to mention later, but you do also have to share and document your work and show the visibility of it.
100%.
Because you can do the work, you can do the projects, you can get the certifications, but if nobody sees it, if you're not, it's like I'm a car salesman and I'm trying to sell a Ferrari, but I have it parked all the way in the back. It's like, man, get that thing all the way up in the front so that people are driving by and they can see it from like a mile away. You know what I mean? So we talked about certifications. Then I started going into about the marketability, the visibility of it. This goes for your certifications. This goes for taking screenshots and making LinkedIn articles, LinkedIn posts of your progress alongside of it. You know, even before you achieve it, you can just document that, hey, I'm at XYZ percentage. I just finished XYZ lab. That's a part of that certification. And then even with projects and home labs, you guys should be documenting. Again, I heavily emphasize taking photos and the screenshots. Not only are people just a little bit more visually stimulated, but I'm pretty sure that the LinkedIn algorithm kind of favors having some type of photo alongside your posts. So documenting, making sure that your work, your progress, whether it's your home labs, your projects, whether it's your certifications, making sure that they are visible. That includes CTFs, right, guys? So we talked about certifications. We talked about making sure it's visible. Your work is visible. You're marketing yourself. Of course, the old school degree or no degree. I rank degrees in general a little bit lower on the totem pole. Certain roles, certain industries, let's say like government roles, military, things of that nature. Of course, those type of fields, those type of industries, they have hard set HR type of rules, hiring rules that you must have XYZ degree, you must have XYZ certification, the DoD 8140, right? It's been updated, the 8140. But overall, I ranked degrees pretty low due to the enormous amount of anecdotal evidence that how many people are breaking in successfully to cybersecurity, both in entry-level roles, but then also elevating to more mid-level senior roles. You know, the proverbial, the so desired 100K remote roles, right? 100K plus remote roles. There's people doing that prior to their degree, whether they get it down the line, but you know, it wasn't necessary for them to get it in the first place. So I think that's very objective evidence that it's not the degree that's getting these people into their positions. Spoke about certs. We spoke about visibility and kind of social media activity. I also added in projects in there, and then we spoke about degree. And I think we now need to really highlight networking, social media activity. This is a little bit different than just the visibility I was talking to before, because now that was just marketing yourself and showing and proving your work, right? Now I'm getting more into the human aspect of it, of like actually commenting on other people's posts, sharing, reaching out to people, whether it's email, whether it's you know, with LinkedIn, especially with LinkedIn Premium, you can send a follower connection and then send that as a complete stranger. You can send an introductory message. So things that, and then we can even get into further where we start doing in person, where we're going to conventions, we're going to B-sides, we're going to DEF CON, whatever that may be, Falcon. Some of those conventions are pretty dang expensive, so I don't expect everybody to join some of the higher end ones, but you know, get out there whenever and wherever you can. So, you know, the whole aspect of networking from the social aspect, it's kind of the thing I was saying before, where you can't 100% control it, because I can't tell you that, hey, if you only speak to 50 people, that will guarantee that you're going to get in. And I can't even guarantee you for how long it may take before it pays off. You basically have to embrace it as a strategic lifestyle and just let the ROI come whenever it comes. So I think that about hits almost everything before we get into very tiny minutia. I think it's tiny minutia of like resume writing, applications, those things. I think those four pillars are kind of the biggest, meaningful, do the right things, and the more you do of it, the further you'll get along, and the higher your probability and odds.
You just dropped so much knowledge there, and I really actually want to dive into each kind of one of those pillars. But really quick, I want to ask you, if someone is starting out brand new here in 2026, zero experience, in your opinion, what do you think is the fastest proven path to landing their first job in cybersecurity?
Guys, that's a hard question. I want to answer it as correct and broad scale as possible, but Dakota asked me a hard question because he asked me the fastest. And that's hard because just because it's the fastest doesn't mean everybody can replicate it. Because when we say fastest, maybe someone like me, where I just blitzed certification after certification after certification. I had the money for the certs. I had the money for the training. I had the money for the LinkedIn premium.
Yeah, I was going to say, you ran that whole thing.
And do you see how it's like that may not work for everybody? That may not work for a nurse who may be trying to switch industries. That may not work for somebody who, like your previous self, Dakota, where you were a crane operator. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Bulldozer, but close.
Bulldozer. I apologize. You might have been beat up and tired and just too zoned out by the time you gotten home. You know what I mean? Different strategies will work for different people. So it's just the fastest. I think when we say fastest, cliche, but slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So true. I don't want to recommend to you guys the fastest, but it's like a higher risk, meaning it's not as high of a certainty. Remember, I'm talking about probabilities. There is no certainty here. I'm going to go with the more successful, anecdotally, what has worked for more people. It's going to come down to one of two. It's going to come down to the stepping stone approach, where you get some type of entry IT role. You continue to upskill. Good thing of this route is that you're already working, making money. You're in the world of IT. You can network with your peer, with your other sister IT teams, the cybersecurity director, the network director, blah, blah, blah. You can network with people within your job. And you can eventually work your way up. Again, I think I love the stepping stone approach for the biggest reason is that you begin making money.
Yeah.
And I mentioned money not to be so money focused. I mentioned money because realistically, people have to survive and pay bills. Yep. So, and if I keep recommending people to get degrees, get certifications, blah, 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 more training, where's that financials? Where logistically, where are you going to have the money to invest? Well, great. We'll do the stepping stone approach. I mentioned that as one very effective of fastest. I'm going to rate that as number one fastest, not because of time, but because it has the highest, one of the highest probabilities of a sure shot that it will work for everyone.
Highest level of success rate.
Highest level of success, consistency of success. I'll say the second, this is the fastest, but it's not everybody's going to be able to replicate it. And that's my frustration with it. College, internship before you graduated.
Interesting.
There's almost no faster route than if you pick certain high quality colleges and universities and you were able to secure cybersecurity internships before you graduated, bonus points if you were able to score multiple. That is one of, if not the fastest route. And now I'm biting my tongue because I'm like, the typical is 4 years, right?
Right.
But I guess I still stand by that, just because I don't like that route as my preferred number one, only because just like you have to filter a lot of different certifications, you have to filter a lot of different schools, a lot of different schools. And then you have to fight hard just to get the internship. And financially and time, energy wise, that school with internship route, I think I'd say it works the best for young individuals for the most part, living home with a family structure, not having tons of bills. But I don't think it would always work for a busy adult who may or may not already have a house, a car, bills, children, significant other. So I'm still going to stand by the fastest is the stepping stone approach, with getting some level of an entry IT job. Yeah, and I'll stand by that one.
I can attest to that route because that's kind of the route I went in. Like you mentioned, before I got into tech, I was a bulldozer operator and I had no formal experience. I dropped out of college. I didn't even have certifications when I first started out. Just because there's a cost involved with certifications. Certifications are great, but they get expensive, even the basic entry level ones. I was studying for certifications using like free online material, which is great. But I didn't have them yet. And I knew, so my end goal, I've always been a networking guy. I love cybersecurity, but networking is my bread and butter. So I wanted to become a network administrator or a systems administrator, some admin high level role in an IT organization. So I knew
cables in the back.
There are over here on the side. Yeah, that's my home lab. I have network switches right over here, and I am networking guys through and through.
Living the life, guys.
I am, and so I knew I couldn't go back to college because that was my first thought. Is okay, I'm going to go get a degree, land a job. I'm ready for a career change, and we had bought our house not too long ago. Money wasn't great. I had 3 kids at the time even, and just quickly realized I can't go back to school. I can't afford this. And certifications were even a stretch for me. So I started just hustling, and I really leaned into the networking side, not the routers and switches, the networking side, the human networking side. I started going to in-person meetup events, and there was a bunch of free ones. I went to sites like meetup.com, LinkedIn had some posted. If I could find a in-person meetup within I can't remember, 100 miles, I was going to it. I drove one day, 2.5 hours one way to go to this meetup with just the hope that I could rub elbows with people that were already doing the jobs that I wanted. And, that is huge because I say it every time and I absolutely hate it, but it's never going to go away. Sometimes in this industry, especially cybersecurity, it's not what you know, it's who you know. That can play a huge role in it. But going back to my story and the stepping stone path, I finally landed a job at an entry-level help desk job, a role. I was an IT support specialist. I was resetting Active Directory passwords. And my goal, as soon as I landed that job, is okay, what do I need to do to start getting myself ready for that next job? Because my goal is to stay here for 1 to 2 years and then move on to that next job and then that next one. So as soon as I landed my first job, I started studying for my next job. I never stopped. And that in turn ended up paying off because I was able, in the time frame of 3 years, go from an absolute bare entry level job, again, no certifications, no college degree, and landed a director level role at an ISP. I'm the director of a network operations center in the 3-year time span. So it is absolutely achievable. And I personally think it's one of the best ways to get in because you also get a taste of different areas of IT as you progress. But everyone, at the end of the day, you have to find out what works for you. If you really want to try to speed run this, get certifications, go to school, that is definitely an option, but that doesn't work for everyone. If, you have to study for half an hour every evening after you put the kids to bed or whatever, do what works for you. And just at the end of the day, keep your eye on that end goal. Hey, really quick, since we're talking about breaking into cybersecurity, one of the things that doesn't get enough attention is how important it is to actually get your hands on the tools that are helping solve today's challenges. Reading about security concepts is one thing, but the real learning happens when you can actually see how attackers move and how the defenders are responding. That is one of the reasons I've been really excited about working with Referrals, who is the one that's actually supporting this episode. They've built what's called a unified data security platform, and what makes it different is it doesn't just drown you in alerts like a lot of the other tools out there. It actually learns your environment, where your sensitive data lives, who's accessing it, and what is normal behavior versus something risky. And the best part, it can actually automatically fix issues before they turn into breaches. That is the kind of practical, hands-on protection companies are looking for right now. And for those of you who are just starting on your journey into cybersecurity, they actually created something that I think you'll love. It's called Operation Frostbite, the first ever Snowflake GOAT. It is a capture the flag style training game where you get to explore real world misconfigurations in a Snowflake and practice spotting risk in a way that attackers would. It is fun, safe, and honestly is one of the best ways to start building real world experience without waiting years to get it on the job. And if that wasn't enough, Operation Frostbite is eligible to earn you CPEs. So if you're looking for ways to level up your skills or just want to see how these kind of attacks play out, check out the links down in the show notes. You'll find the Operation Frostbite and the Referrals blog, which is packed full of insights for anyone looking to grow in this field. All right, with that said, let's get back to this week's episode about breaking into the cybersecurity field.
Another option that we didn't mention was the military route. A lot of training, secret clearance, and as long as you pass a high enough of a score for the entrance exam, the ASVAB, you can almost essentially pick your MOS, your job. It's a 4-digit code, and you can almost guarantee you're going to go right directly into an IT, network, and cloud cyber job. And then as you get out, if you choose to get out, you still hold your secret clearance. You still hold all your certifications that you took and you held active. But like Dakota just mentioned, guys, you kind of have to do what's best that's going to be able to work for you. So you take bits and pieces of everybody else's story that was successful, and you make a combination that works for you. Because is everybody going to be willing to go to the military? Absolutely not. So it's not like we're going to sit here and tell you guys that, the best way is just go to the military. Yeah, no, it's not going to work for everybody. So everybody's path is going to be a little bit different. And even with the story that Dakota just mentioned, and even myself, I think we were able to break in so quick, so soon. But Dakota, correct me if I'm wrong, that was 100% on-site role, correct?
Yes. Yeah, I have yet to have a remote job.
And my first cybersecurity role was local hybrid, so I still had to show up on site. And the reason I mention that is because how the heck do you control that? That's right place, right time. Like, I can't force you guys. What, you're going to relocate? Or the reason I bring up that it's on site or hybrid is that those roles typically have less competition because you have to be within that XYZ zip code within a drivable mileage distance, right? As opposed to if you guys are trying to be entry and jump into cybersecurity and you're just so headstrong on it being remote, it's going to be hard. It's going to be rough.
100%. And I don't think people talk about that enough because it's almost daily now. I get people coming to me and like, how do I, land an entry level remote job? I'm like, good luck. Like you and 100,000 other people want that job because anyone around the world can land, can go for that job. Where that first job, when you're first trying to break in, when you don't have the experience, when you don't maybe have the right certifications, if you go after a local job, your chances of landing that job are a lot higher.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
And go ahead.
The in-person networking. Once you land that local, that on-site or that hybrid job, you're going in person. So you get to go, I call it, shaking hands and kissing babies, kicking doors down, but basically, you get to do your job, and you get to really work your social charisma and work with everybody. You might do IT support, and you might be able to walk into a C-suite's office because they can't print something, or they whatever, right? And you can work that in-person magic, seeing your facial expressions, your upbeat, positive energy, your enthusiasm for IT, things of that nature, and you can potentially network your way. And who knows, a cybersecurity role opens within that organization, and you just happen to help XYZ C-suite individual, and the first thing they think of is you because of your positivity and energy and upbeat, and that can be your way to work into at least interviewing for that position. So there's multiple benefits to being in person. Mm-hmm.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because at two of my jobs, I've actually managed to land 5-figure raises in like single year because of that. I'm not talking like you need to go brown nose your boss's boss. I'm talking about just, being there, being the person that they count on, being the person that they want to call, giving it that 110%, it doesn't go unnoticed. And another thing you mentioned is, when we were talking about the different jobs out there, I get this a lot. Do you think that entry-level jobs in cybersecurity even still are going to be existing in 2026? Or do you feel like most of them are just mislabeled mid-level roles? The job titles are changing, I feel like, now.
Yes, to varying degrees. So essentially I'm saying yes and no. So on one level, you said, are entry cyber roles still going to exist? Sure. I do think the volume of them are going to come down on one end. So they're still going to exist, but there's already going to be less, as if there's tons of entry cyber jobs in the first place. So that makes things more difficult. Yeah. Secondly, I've always mentioned this, even when I was first trying to get in that 2023, because I call it job inflation or skills inflation, is that as IT, cyber, networking, cloud, as new tools, solutions, etc. comes out, as new technology comes out, it's inflation on of the candidates, of the current employees, of the workforce to adapt to that new technology and become skilled with it. So I'd say for the mid 2015s all the way to like 2022, cloud was a good example of job inflation, right? I think at first it was sysadmin, security engineer, and there was just the cloud admins, the cloud administrators, engineers, etc. Right. What slowly started to happen is your sysadmin and your security engineer, you were started to be expected to already possess cloud skills just to even break in. That's the example of what I mean by job inflation. And to answer directly to what you're saying now for incoming 2026, guys, there's going to be more job inflation, skills inflation. So entry-level individuals for cybersecurity are not only going to have to learn the basics of IT systems, networking, servers, things of that nature. Now you're going to have to also learn the foundational cybersecurity concepts, but then skills. And then how AI integrates into all this, AI, automation. And it's unfortunate that right now that it's so new and it's moving so fast. So it's not even like I can sit here and tell you with a beautiful bulleted list, like I know exactly where the job market is going and exactly what the skills are requiring. I just know that AI is here. AI is not going away. AI machine learning to some degree is getting injected into every tool possible. And we just need to keep up with it. So like for me, I just don't know. I'm not an AI machine learning engineer yet. But obviously there's books. Books are kind of the fastest to new age knowledge. Like there's not tons of certifications, so not tons of courses right now, but there's some good books from some really senior AI machine learning gurus. When I say gurus, I mean these are individuals who are doing this since like 2013. And they're already writing books and dropping books. So yes, there are some certifications as well. GCP, AWS, Azure. Those are my favorites because they're already some of the biggest for cloud. Go grab their AI certs. But your original question was entry cyber roles. I think there's going to be less of them. And then the ones that do exist, the skills gap, the barrier to entry, the skills gap, the skills inflation is going to keep growing. And which basically means you need to be even more competent, more trained, more skilled as an entry junior cybersecurity XYZ. And I've said this before, I've said this so many times, and I ruffle people's feathers, but I mean, it's my opinion, and I think it's the truth, but cybersecurity is not an entry-level field. So be ready to put in the work, guys.
Talked about this actually on the channel a few weeks ago about how AI, it's a huge, powerful tool. And I strongly believe actually for people that are trying to break into the industry today, if you want to go after like skills to have on like your resume to make you stand out from the crowd, learn AI. Because we're not putting this toothpaste back in the tube. Yep. It is here to stay. It's only going to get smarter. It's only going to get evolve. And, yes, I agree that it is taking jobs away. But for every job it takes, it's creating other jobs. It's like for every job it takes, it creates 2 other jobs. But what those jobs look like is totally different than the new jobs we were seeing, even like 4 years ago. It's completely changing the job market. And I feel like there is still a decent amount of entry-level jobs out there, but they look different to what some more veterans like you and I would expect to see an entry-level job look like. So, I think the people who can embrace AI and embrace the change in the industry are really going to excel and get to a point where they can write their own check, to be honest with you. So...
You said something interesting towards the end where you said embrace the change. And I think if it doesn't have to be cybersecurity, but any IT field, I think everyone listening, you really do have to embrace and embody that ever-changing adaptation and growth lifestyle mindset, honestly, because technology just moves so fast. So be ready to embrace, be ready to adapt, always at all times. And it's probably never going to end. So I think in some way you got to learn to love it.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one thing about this industry. You have to be willing to constantly learn, constantly be adapting, because it is evolving at such a rapid rate. You stop learning for 2 minutes and you're already behind. Now, I want to kind of dive into some of the things we talked about at the beginning of the episode, and I want to touch on the importance of the resume. What is, in your opinion, what is one thing that people are putting on their resumes in 2026, at the end of here, 2025, that are actually hurting their chances more than helping?
Oh, man. That's good. That's a good question, Dakota. There's so many little different micro things from different candidate to candidate. And I'm always going to try to bias towards the most universal blanket answer. Okay. So of course I'm missing some things when I pick the most blanket answer. Okay. But from a lot of things that I've seen, with helping with people with resumes, with also being on the flip side where I'm helping the hiring manager go through some of these resumes and I'm reading them too, especially junior people. I think the biggest thing is people don't do the homework to really research and understand what the role is, what the role is looking for. And when I say the role is looking for, I also mean what are the recruiter, the hiring manager, the hiring panel, what do they actually need from you? And where this stems from is, as I've helped people so many resumes, and I see their bullet points, and I see the skills that they list, and I see the things that they write that they've done in college, I'm like, I made an analogy that, let's say I'm building an army. We're going to war. I'm building an army. And I need soldiers. I need soldiers who can snipe, who can machine gun, who can artillery, who can medic. Like, do you guys hear how I'm saying, I need this, I need this, I need this, I need this, because I'm going to war and we have modern weapon technology, right? And a lot of things that I'm seeing is newcomers. So you are coming to me, I'm the general, I'm enlisting people, whatever, and you're coming to me and you're like, I'm a master swordsman. Here's my spear, here's my sword. And I'm looking at you like, these guys, I need guys who can shoot. What? You're in the direction because you're combat focused, but you're missing so much of like the real necessities. Can you load, aim, and fire safely a firearm and consistent rounds down range? It's cool you can swing a sword. Now reverse the whole analogy back to cybersecurity and resumes, right? Is that I don't think you guys done enough research consistently, whether it's a GRC analyst, whether it's a SOC analyst, cybersecurity analyst, whether it's a security engineer, whatever the role may be, you guys aren't reading enough job descriptions and pulling the common denominators that each of them are asking for. And hence you would then know, hey, here's kind of like the top 5, top 10 most common things I keep seeing on every single job description when I'm focused on this title. That would tell me that that's what is the most meaty, necessary skills, tools, keywords, etc. that we need on our resume, but then also you actually need to possess that training, that skill, that competence, right? And I think it's also a little bit absurd today because AI is so prevalent. It's like the research phase could go so much faster and more accurate if you guys just go into, I don't care what AI tool you use. We have OpenAI, ChatGPT, we have Google Gemini, we have Perplexity, we have Grok. I can go on and on and on. We have Claude Anthropic, right? So if you guys would just ask it, what's the top 3, top 5, what's the most important skills that I need to develop as to be marketable as a SOC analyst, as an entry SOC analyst, almost all of them will paint out the skills, the tools, the mindsets, the frameworks, everything that you should be learning and attacking. And it's just really sad because it's just like, it's such a simple and easy and accessible thing to do of just research what the role actually is, what the role actually entails and what the hiring manager needs. And that, I think once people do that research, it's so much more, there's so much more clarity for, oh, I'm wasting space writing this, saying this, and let me just put the things that are super duper attractive and marketable for XYZ role. I think that's the biggest thing is they don't do enough research for that clarity.
You know, one thing I tell people every time, you know, I get a lot of people coming to me and like, I've submitted hundreds of thousands of resumes and I'm not getting any job interviews. And I give them the same tough love, and I kind of feel bad, but sometimes I feel like it's really what people need to hear is if you find yourself applying for hundreds of jobs and you're not getting interviews, your resume sucks.
Yeah.
If you're applying for jobs, getting interviews, but you're not getting job offers, your interview skills suck.
Yes, sir.
That's really what it comes down to.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I can't stress how important it is when you're applying for your jobs to customize your resume and or cover letter for each job you apply for. And people are like, oh, Dakota, that takes so much time. If I did that, I'd never apply for jobs. And I'm like,
guys, we're unemployed anyway. We're unemployed anyway. Like we got the time.
You know, it only takes 5 to 10 minutes per job that you apply for to customize your resume. And I can guarantee you that your response rate is going to go up like 3 or 4x just by taking that little bit amount of time. And yeah, you might actually end up not being able to apply for as many jobs, but the quality applications you put out there is going to be so much more likely to get a response.
Yes, sir.
So take the time, like you're saying, do some research, investigate what they're looking for. You know, a lot of times what I would do when I was looking is on my monitor, I'd have my resume on one side and the job listing on the other side. Yeah, I'd look, I'm like, oh, this job skill, it looks like they want this job skill. Do I have it? Yes. Okay. I'm going to put it here. And I even went like a step above, and like, I don't just list my skills. I list them out in like a sentence format. So it's easy to read. And I would even put that exact skill in bold. Like I'm trying to like make it stand out. So like the person reading it, because they're only spending like 3 to 4 seconds reading your resume. You got to catch their attention. You know, if you just fill your resume with just garbage and fluff that doesn't need to be there, it's almost guaranteed that it's just going to land in the trash pile. So
100% I agree. I agree because showing is better than telling. Your resume is mostly just walls of text. Your LinkedIn, how many times have you guys seen XYZ number of people viewed your profile, your LinkedIn profile? You know, you're getting stalked, right? You're like, you know, we do it all the time, whether somebody's Facebook, somebody's Instagram, somebody's TikTok. You land on somebody that you, for whatever reason, find somewhat interesting or strange, and you just start scrolling and looking about a little bit more about them. Well, that would be the same thing for any hiring panel. When I say hiring panel, I mean anybody that can be on that hiring panel to interview you, right? The recruiter, etc. And why LinkedIn is becoming more powerful is because on my resume, I can say I have XYZ certification. On my LinkedIn, I can show you the PDF and the link to go verify it. It's very different.
Exactly.
And you can see the posts that the 5 posts that I documented along my journey, my progress as I'm studying for, the days that I set and scheduled for it, when I took it, and then when I finally earned it. You know, you can see that track record and that history. On my resume, you can see the link and you can see the wording for my project. On LinkedIn, you can actually go click on the link and it'll actually go show you, you know, bring you to that GitHub. Or LinkedIn even has a little like blog article feature that you can just write it right there on your LinkedIn profile. You don't even have to transfer it to a GitHub or a Notion or a Medium, whatever blog website you guys want to use. So the LinkedIn is really honestly becoming more powerful, with an asterisk, because you still have to get in front of the recruiter's face. So if you had to do that by going to the company's portal, seeing the job requisition, and then applying first, and then that got the recruiter's interest to then go check out your LinkedIn, that's kind of hard for me to argue that the LinkedIn is stronger.
Yeah.
But I'm saying once you're able to get that interest, it's like a little mini treat, a little appetizer towards the interview. You know, it's very powerful.
You know,
if you build it out, you need to build out your LinkedIn. You know, so there's a bit to that as well.
You know, as a hiring manager, I'll admit that anytime an application comes in where someone links to their LinkedIn profile, I don't even bother reading their resume. I just kind of jump off of that and hop onto the LinkedIn, because I can really see how much effort they've put into their LinkedIn profile. It shows, you know, if they've really cared to create articles and like make a strong effort at landing this job, you know, or landing a job in the career field. It really stands out on LinkedIn way more than it does, I feel like, on a resume. I feel like resumes, especially nowadays, they can feel so fake, especially because a lot of people are leveraging some AI tools. And I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You know, I definitely think you should use AI to help you write your resume, but let's be honest, like most people just copy and paste, you know, out of ChatGPT. And that's not what I'm saying. And I don't think we'll ever see it the day where LinkedIn is going to replace a resume. I think we're always going to have a resume. You know, it's always going to be your first and foremost. Again, this goes back to, how are you going to stand out from the hundreds of thousands of other people applying? How are you going to differentiate yourself to those hiring managers? And one really strong way is having a LinkedIn profile, you know, that you're active on, that you're contributing, because you know, you're not only networking with other individuals in the industry, you're, you know, putting yourself out there, you're documenting what you're learning on LinkedIn. And that can be really a huge ace up your sleeve.
One more thing about the LinkedIn and how it kind of ties in and interacts with the resume is that as you guys begin networking and as you guys begin applying, is that you're going to see roles that are open. And while you're on LinkedIn, especially if you use LinkedIn Premium, you are able to direct message as a complete stranger. You don't even need to already be connected with the individual. They don't have to accept it. It would just come in as like a message request, but they'll still get the notification. And you can basically write like a little 20-second elevator pitch to them. And I think that's another incredible power of LinkedIn, is that you get to do that elevator pitch and market yourself to a complete stranger. And it's a totally different angle of like almost this begging, desperate, I need a job, as opposed to here's what I've done, here's what I've accomplished, and here's why those things tie into why I think I would be a perfect fit and I would be an asset to the team. And one more thing on that is referrals. The whole point of when I said you can direct message a complete stranger on LinkedIn is basically to hyperspeed shortcut that whole application in the pile list and just get right to the interview. But typically you need to talk to somebody in that company for that to even possibly happen, typically by a referral. Whether that's going to be you're going to find through LinkedIn and searching through the search features, finding the security director, the security manager, a security engineer, the cybersecurity or the IT recruiter, one of these relevant stakeholders in the interview process where you can do your elevator pitch. They can see that you're bringing value. You have skills. You have prior work experience, XYZ. You've already messaged them on LinkedIn. So they're looking at your LinkedIn up and down versus looking at your resume. They see your profile picture because you built out your entire LinkedIn profile. And now it's an entirely different dilemma when you're coming to this person almost like as a peer, almost like you're offering your value, you're offering your services to be hired to this company.
And also let's not forget the fact that it's a lot easier to meet a person for the first time and start talking to them on LinkedIn than it is during an interview where, everyone's nervous and it's a lot less pressure making those cold introductions over LinkedIn through the keyboard versus face to face.
I'd agree. And guys, when I say this stuff to you about this whole LinkedIn and this random DMing, I'm not coming at that just like I learned that. No, I did that and I've had more than one time success with it, meaning I've got to the interview rounds and I've got the offer letters. So it does work. You do have to put in the work of all the prior things that we spoke about earlier in this podcast, in this interview, where I mentioned having the certifications visible, having the projects visible, doing the work, building out the LinkedIn profile, because when you go to do that elevator pitch, they're going to look at your profile and see if you're worth their time, essentially. So it works.
Absolutely. And, another thing, we've been talking about, so we've talked about resumes, we've talked about LinkedIn and the different jobs out there. I want to touch on certifications, and I don't think I can stress it enough that, in 2026, you can't just stack certifications and expect to get a job offer. Certifications are great. I always tell people to get their foot in the door to an interview, but they're not going to land you a job. So many people lean on certifications like a crutch. They're the reason I can't get hired. Right. And I that's just not the case. I feel like, they will absolutely check a box on the hiring manager's list when they're deciding whether or not they're going to invite you to an interview. But those aren't the things that are actually holding you back. And I want to ask you, what do you think hiring managers really want to see that, from you to prove that you can solve the problem? Even if it's just like a home lab or something, what do you think they're wanting to see when they're deciding they want to invite you to an interview?
So very simple is that To even get to the interview, you're supposed to persuade, entice, interest XYZ person that you can do the job. If you can persuade them or pique their interest that you can potentially do the job, that's how you got to the interview. Now, when you're at the interview, it's let's actually talk, and hopefully I can weed out whether you're the real deal and you actually have these skills, you actually have that work experience. You mentioned the cert stacking. And when I hear cert stacking, I mean like you're kind of empty-mindedly gathering certs, as opposed to the cert is supposed to prove and showcase that you have a certain skill and you're able to do XYZ. You're able to deliver XYZ results. So when we say stacking certs, it can get you that interview. You're still going to have to perform at the interview. Guys, having Network Plus, having CCNA doesn't mean that you're going to automatically get the job. You're going to get to the interview. They're going to see you have XYZ cert. And if it's a technical interview, there's a very high chance that that technical panel, they're going to poke and pry questions exactly on the topics about that cert. Could you imagine you got the CCNA and somebody on the panel has CCNA, CCNP? They know the material you're supposed to know, and they're going to bug and they're going to ask questions about it. And you better be able to answer and communicate smoothly and also tie it into your projects if you have no work experience, or tie it into your work experience if you do. So you're totally right, Dakota, where the cert stacking isn't the end all be all. It's definitely interesting. It definitely piques people's interest. There's a high likelihood it can get you an interview. You still have to perform at the interview. And let's just say you miraculously got the job offer and you think you did poorly at the interview, you're still going to have to perform it at the job and keep your job. So
absolutely,
all that to say about the cert stacking is make sure you genuinely are building skills, deep understanding. And one more thing about certs is it always behooves you to build projects around certs. You're not always going to be able to do it for every cert. Like, do I want you to do, if you're applying for help desk, you get the A+. Do I want you to do an Active Directory lab? Yes. But like, you get the ISC, the CCSP. These are conceptual certs. Like, you're going to build a project around it? No. But if, let's say, you get Splunk certs, should I expect to see a Splunk lab? Yeah. So depending on the cert, building the lab to further showcase and prove that you have that skill or that competency is big, since we're talking about those conceptual multiple choice certifications. The hands-on ones, those kind of speak for itself, but you guys better be screen sharing your progress the whole way and showing the skills and the tools and the lab work that you're doing along the way. So you're totally right about the whole cert stacking thing.
Absolutely. You know, I want to keep the momentum going. You know, we were talking about this a little bit earlier. If someone right now, what if something someone should stop doing right now if they've been job hunting for months and still don't have any luck? What's your recommendation to them?
My recommendation is don't change the goal, but be more flexible about the path towards that goal. So for example, there's lots of
really good advice there.
There's lots of people who want to get into cybersecurity, and this is like their first IT jump into IT in general. And you guys are so laser focused on the cyber. And I like to give analogies to like personal training, bodybuilding, health, and fitness of like, it's kind of the same way of people are so laser focused on the abs. And then for females, the butt and the flat stomach, It's like, if you do the right work, you're going to get there. The right work, meaning actually controlling your calorie intake, making sure you're in deficit, doing proper resistance training and cardio, and sleep and rest, right? Now, back to the cybersecurity thing. You want to be an analyst. You want to be an engineer. You want to be a cloud security engineer, whatever that may be. But you guys are so hyper focused on, I have to do all of this to jump right to getting that title. And it's only that title. So I have multiple things about that. Number one is I think you guys should be a lot more focused on the tools, the technologies, and the skills, because titles, once you every one of you who actually get into the industry, you're going to see titles are very loosey goosey. Just
100%.
You can be called an analyst and you're doing engineer work. You could be called an engineer and you're still doing analyst work. You could be called an engineer and be doing sysadmin stuff. You can be called an engineer and you're doing GRC stuff and you're doing a little bit management stuff. Like, these companies will call you whatever, but you actually need to look at the job description and the role and the common bullet points to actually really understand what you're going to be expected to do. So number one, that title. But then I was also saying about how you guys need to be a little bit more flexible with how you get to that goal, going way back to your question about these people are stuck. Break the goal down into more bite-sized pieces. Like we mentioned before, do the stepping stone approach of getting any IT job. You're getting closer. One IT job is better than no IT job, and you're still unemployed. Any type of IT networking cloud experience is going to take you closer to that end goal of whatever that title you're looking for. So it's not even that you failed. It's that you're one step closer. If I want to be a cybersecurity analyst, let me get the help desk role first. Let me get the NOC analyst first. Let me get the junior sysadmin role first. Let me get the cloud support analyst first. And again, the income aspect, so that you can continue upskilling, certs, projects, education, etc. And getting some W's, getting some momentum, moving towards that goal, as opposed to just beating your head against the wall, continually applying, not getting anywhere. You're getting frustrated, you're getting demotivated, and you see so many people kind of hit that burnout aspect. And when we say burnout, it can be physical, it could be mental, it could be emotional. But typically what I've seen with burnout is you feel like you're outputting all this time, energy, resources, effort, but you're not feeling that fulfillment of that return on investment. You're not getting any meaningful amount of reward. And that's what frustrates you guys first. Then it disappoints you. Then it just like either depression or frustration. And then you feel this burnout and then you just quit on it entirely.
No, absolutely. You know, it's an uphill battle when you're first trying to break in. And let me tell you that this is going to be one of the hardest times, like moments in your career. You know, it's getting that first foot in the door when you don't have any experience, when you don't have the right certifications, you feel like, when all the cards are stacked against you. This is going to be the most discouraging time in your career, I feel like, when you're trying to land that first job. Mm-hmm. And it's so easy just to give up completely and be like, oh, it's not for me. But, you know, again, this all goes back to what we said in the very, very, very beginning, is everyone has their own path into cybersecurity. Everyone has their own path into tech in general. Yeah. And you got to find out what works for you. Maybe you've been knocking on this door trying to get into a security analyst position, but you just haven't been landing any interviews. There is tons of different ways to achieve that goal. Maybe you have to sidestep and do this other job for 6 months to a year to be able to work up the experience to land that job. The most important thing is just to start. Yeah. Another thing I see so many people fail at is they don't even start applying until they have like 25 certifications. And it's so frustrating because you don't need certifications to break in. Yeah, some will argue, well, this job requires it, or you need a certification to land a job with the government job. You know, you need Security Plus. Most employers, including the government jobs that require you to have like Security Plus, will give you a time frame to land that certification, to pass that certification. Mm-hmm. And you know what's also great is they're probably going to pay for you to take that certification as well if it's a requirement. But also with a lot of these jobs, not just some of them, these requirements you see on these applications or in these job listings are a wish list. That's one thing we haven't even like really dive into is the jobs you're seeing. So many people get like so offended because, this entry level job is asking for like 10 years of experience. How can I get experience if I can't land a job?
Yeah.
Apply for it anyways, because you never know, one, when you might be the most qualified person to apply. Two, you never know, like, when the hiring manager just decides they like you better than the other applicants. Because that's personally happened to me. A big skill is soft skills.
Correct.
That is huge, is your ability to communicate with others. And, I'm just curious, in your experience, you've, again, really kind of speed ran this career industry. How did soft skills play into all that for you?
So it played a role in every step of the way. A little bit more about my background, guys. I was overweight my whole life. Got my first job around senior year of high school at Taco Bell. I became the youngest manager on the East Coast at like 17 years old. I'm still a minor. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was getting my manager, allegedly, I was getting my manager in trouble because you're not supposed to be able to work more than 40 hours. And she's like, clock out now, because they can get fined and everything.
Yeah.
I bring up the Taco Bell, and I bring up the Taco Bell manager because the empathy, the communication, the urgency to serve customers and correct problems, especially in high pressure environments. These people are mad that their food or XYZ, their order, they're already hungry, they're hangry, things of that nature, right? And then the personal training, I was a certified personal trainer from NASM. It's expired now at this point. So there's more empathy and listening to everybody's different life structure and problems, and trying to diagnose and make the fitness lifestyle kind of work for them. We get into the Marine Corps with the paralegal. Now there's more empathy and communication with the legal jargon, the technical legal jargon, and then translating it to non-legal personnel ties beautifully into my first IT role as an IT support specialist, where I was basically doing it already with legal, but now I'm just doing it in the realm of IT. I'm still doing that technical translation to a non-technical audience who doesn't understand that lingo in that world. And it tied back into the Taco Bell because the empathy and the urgency to serve, because they're locked out of their account. They can't send an email. The printer's not working. The network is down at that building. So all of these soft skills built over time and accumulated and helped me along each way, along each interview, along each job. So like it's a skill, guys. Like, I wish I could just and give it to somebody. I can't. And everybody's life experience is different. Everybody's cultural upbringing is different. So we all communicate differently. I bodybuild. I have the Marine Corps. I have dark and whatever. Anything is funny humor to me. Is dry humor. It's what's funny to you guys might not be funny to me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But how it comes into today is interviews are like fun to me. They're fun. Like it's like I have it down pat as a whole routine. Whenever an interview is scheduled, I make sure from that recruiter is you tell me who's going to be there, so that I can go power creep them on LinkedIn. But it's cybersecurity. It's not power creeping. It's OSINT. It's open source intelligence, right, guys? We got to do our due diligence, right?
100%.
And the reason I do that is because I'd like to see how long they were working at the company. Did they internally promote? Did they have a military background? Because I'm going to say thank you for your service and crack jokes because I had military service. So you guys are not going to be able to copy that verbatim because my life experience is different than your life experience. But you guys are still going to be able to do that stalking to kind of size up the interviewer or the hiring panel. Why? So that you can break the ice and find common ground and turn the interview away from this interrogation, mechanical, disgusting, transactional conversation into an actual get to know you. And the best interviews I find is where you're shooting the stuffs because you're nerding and geeking out and they're nerding and geeking out. They're interested in what you've done with your certifications, your prior work experience, your projects, and you're nerding out because you're just able to talk about and share all the things that you did. I find that those when you're able to turn those interviews and get these complete strangers to kind of just open up to you and probably tell you a little bit more than they should, even about the role in the company, those interviews go the best. But how do you do that is that I always find ways to find common ground. I did the research prior. I always inject some way, somehow, comedy. I can't even teach it because if I were to teach it, I'd say everybody would have to begin by watching so much stand-up comedy and funny things and other comedians and kind of self-study yourself of what made you laugh. The things that made you laugh, if you analyze why you found them funny, well, now you can imitate it for the future. Because I found that funny, hopefully when I deliver it to other people, they also find it funny. And that's how it's just because I find things funny that I find opportunities and I'll throw out and inject them. And usually they laugh. And what's the importance of the laughing? What's the importance of the common ground? The whole aspect of breaking the ice and turning the interview away from being such a super mechanical, uncomfortable. And why does that matter, guys? Because people like working with people they like. Okay. 100%. So if you're a super technical, awesome stud of just a technical capacity, but talking to you was like nails on a chalkboard, you might lose to a lesser technical candidate just because they were a breeze and a joy to talk to, like you mentioned before, Dakota. So, man, soft skills are just so huge. It's so huge. One more thing I didn't mention about it. I don't talk about soft skills a lot because to me it was like common sense, and I don't mean that as an insulting way, but to me it was common sense because obviously my prior job experience, and I didn't mention one of my job experiences. I was kind of a failure at it. I was kind of bad at it, but sales. At one point I was doing door-to-door sales. It was for security systems. Man. and why I say soft skills have become common sense to me. I also did sales a little bit with personal training because I had to sell packages. I had to sell my services, etc. The reason I said it was common sense to me is because to be good at sales, you have to understand human psychology. And you're going up to complete strangers and trying to persuade them. Right, guys? So, again, I don't mean that in an insulting way. That I just thought soft skills was common sense. But I think it's common sense because of my background and my life experience. Soft skills are huge. You guys 100%. Cannot ignore them, just like you can't ignore the hard skills.
Absolutely, 100%. Now, I got to ask, we've covered so much today. If you were to start all over again in 2026, what would you do differently from your own personal journey?
From my own personal journey, you guys remember 2 different paths, okay? I told you guys I went to the Marine Corps as a paralegal. Why? Because I didn't know anything about IT. I didn't even think of it as a career path for me. The whole reason IT even came into my consciousness because I had an older sister who went Army and she did IT and then moved to cybersecurity. So that's one humongous thing earlier in my life that I would have, if I could do it all again, military straight out of high school, probably. People are going to hate me for saying this. Probably not going to the Marine Corps because it was just like you worked a lot harder and got yelled at so much more for the same money. It was just like, why? Probably Air Force, Army. I mean, honestly, any branch other than the Marine Corps would probably serve you better. But Air Force, Navy, I know off the top of my head have very high quality cybersecurity programs and funding. So that was one like branch off that if I could go back and do it again, I would have maximized my time in the military, get them to pay for my degree, maybe go to the SANS, the $40,000 bachelor's program at SANS and get 9 GX certifications. I really would have lived out that entire technology lifestyle within the military, gotten out, kept my security clearance, and then get into gov tech. And everything is just super kosher and just kind of set up for you. It's not set up. You still got to do the work, right? Like I don't mean it in that. Like it's so easy. You're working along the way. The other thing I would do different if I didn't go military, if I didn't maximize the military. Remember, my path in was quite brute force, stepping stone, but then brute force a lot with LinkedIn, social media, and getting certifications. I could have done it smarter financially. I was lucky that I had an older sister who believed in me and financially assisted and invested in me. She paid for a lot of my courses and certifications. I have since, I guess, ROI'd very well back for her. But because there's so much more, I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know how accessible, awesome WGU was. Even I'm just going as far back as 2022, 2023. Why? Because I was low income at the time. I would have gotten almost all of the FAFSA, meaning they would have paid for almost 90% of my WGU. When you pay for WGU, you typically go for a 6 month, they call it a term, and it's 6 months. And WGU is kind of a special type of online university in that it is competency based, which essentially means you pay this type of flat rate and you can go as fast as you can, competency based. So if you are super hardworking and disciplined and you're studying your butt off, you can pass classes and pass tests, you can move faster. Or if you already had existing experience, you can pass tests, pass classes, you can move faster. And one of the biggest things was so many certifications. A lot of my early certifications were from CompTIA. A lot of CompTIAs are along the cybersecurity degree of WGU. So I would have done that a little bit more intelligently with my time, my energy, my money, because I did a lot of it self-funded. Again, remember, my sister helped me. It would have been smarter to just enroll into WGU, have them paying for the certs. Oh, I got free Udemy. Oh, I have cheaper Hack the Box. Oh, I have cheaper Pluralsight, right? Like all these extracurricular, I have an EDU student discount email, Microsoft certifications, AWS certifications, almost any certification you want to take, use your EDU email and they're cheaper. So I could have been simultaneously getting certifications, technically paid for because I just paid for the degree program. Remember, I was lower income, so FAFSA would have covered the majority of it. So I could have been simultaneously working on the degree, simultaneously accruing all these certifications, a part of the program. And I could have been doing the stepping stone approach of working the IT support job instead of, IT support job, no degree, and just hardballing with the certifications. So those are the two things that if I could go back and do differently, I would pick one of the other. Yeah. But I'm very happy and proud with a lot of my path. Like I don't have a lot of regrets. I really don't.
That's awesome to hear. And, you've dropped so much useful information. If there was just one thing that you want people to walk away from this interview, what would that one thing be? But before you answer that, if people want to connect with you, if they want to find you online, ask you more questions, where can they find you?
Yeah. So guys, I'm big on Discord. My account name is called No Fatigue. It's spelled KNOW Fatigue. My full name is David Huynh. The last name is spelled HUYNH. I'm pretty easy to find. I think I'm pretty easy to find due to follower count and everything. On LinkedIn, on Discord. Those are kind of the biggest places right now. I have some dreams and aspirations with the whole social media, like YouTube and things of that nature as well. I can't guarantee or commit to that exactly right now, but Discord, LinkedIn, I'm very easy to find, and very many of you that have reached out to me, you can vouch for me as well. I respond to almost anybody and everybody, as long as you're not a rude jerk. I respond to almost anybody and everybody. So nice. Yeah.
That's awesome. So going back, to the question, what is one thing that you really want everyone to walk away from this talk this evening?
Embrace the never-ending upskilling, learning nature of this beast of IT. If you're gonna get into this IT realm, and then of course niching into cybersecurity, you guys must embrace this never-ending adaptation and upskilling. Like, whether that's coming from threat intelligence because new vulnerabilities are always dropping, new attacks are always happening. if you're in the medical field and another hospital in another state gets attacked, but you don't upskill and you don't stay up to date with threat intelligence and what's going on, they could have gotten hit. That's another hospital. You work at a hospital. This is all hypothetical. You could have studied the methods that they got hit and the vulnerabilities that the attacker exploited. And you can go audit your own hospital and you could potentially save it and prevent it from that same exploit because you see that your organization have the same vulnerabilities that are actively being exploited right now. So that's just one example of the necessity to always stay up to date, embracing this never-ending, nonstop learning, upskilling. And I don't mean it like it's a chore. Like, if you guys think it's a chore, you have two choices. If you think it's a chore, this is not built out for you, or you're not cut out for it, you're going to learn to love it, or you're just going to suck it up. You got three choices. Either, like, if that's it, cut and dry. You have to keep upskilling. Yeah. You have to keep learning, reading, watching videos, whatever that may be. Subscribe to subscription platforms online and doing all these hands-on training. You have to keep upskilling and learning. Automation's here, AI's here, cloud's here. It's not going away. And things are going to continue to get more and more and more complex.
100%. Absolutely. This field is just absolutely evolving at an incredible rate. And you just have to be willing to learn, willing to adapt to
AI. We have Mark Zuckerberg with these Meta Ray-Ban glasses. It's like shoulder surfing, and these people are like zoomed in video. Like, what's going to happen? Like, well, who even knows? Yeah. But yeah.